Hey everybody, what's up? This is James Hernandez. How you all doing? And welcome back to a brand new video. And today is going to be another movie review, which I have been requested to do after when I did my last movie review on the 2005 King Kong movie. And I have been requested by one of my followers on Instagram to review the next movie that apparently not a lot of people really liked, or even fans alike. And the one that I'm talking about right now is this one, the 1998 Godzilla movie directed by Roland Emmerich. Now, this Godzilla movie is basically a reboot to the Godzilla franchise. And like I said, this film came out in 1998 and it was directed by Roland Emmerich, the same guy who did Stargate, Independence Day, The Day After Tomorrow, as well as the 10,000 BC and other disaster films that he made in his career. So let's start with the story of this movie. So the movie begins with the Japanese ship is being attacked by the American Godzilla, or in this case, Zilla. And then many of the Japanese sailors lost their lives, except for one guy who was really lucky to be alive after being attacked by Godzilla. And then we cut into Matthew Broderick's character named Nick Totopoulos, who is a scientist, and he was like studying earthworms. And then he was found by the military, and then he decides to join the military's team to study about Godzilla, and when he sees the footprints. And then throughout the whole movie, we get to see the American Godzilla causing, well, not really causing destruction. I'll get into that. So the American Godzilla arrives in New York City, causing people to panic, and then people are being evacuated, and then it's up to the military to shoot this American Godzilla and save people's lives in New York City. So the first time I actually got into Godzilla is when I actually got this movie, as well as Godzilla Final Wars, and two Godzilla games, Godzilla Save the Earth and Destroy All Monsters Melee. I got those for Christmas, and I was starting to become a fan of Godzilla right next to King Kong. So after watching this movie when I got it for Christmas, and then I actually rewatched this film just recently, what do I think of this movie? Well, here's the thing though. I know a lot of Godzilla fans really despise this movie, and it was considered to be one of the worst films of the 90s, or even the worst movie remakes of all time. But here's my thoughts on what I have to say. I do not hate this movie like everybody else says, but having said that, it's not a good movie. And I'm going to explain to you why. But on the other hand, this is not a good movie, but there are some positives I can actually find about this film. So first, let's talk about the stuff I like first. So first, what I really like about the movie is the beginning sequence when the American Godzilla, or simply known as Zilla, was attacking the Japanese ship. And then we actually got to see one of those like Japanese men on their ship. And then when the American Godzilla was attacking them by showing like his claws and his tail, it actually becomes like a very tense opening, which I actually had to give credit for this movie. And the other positive thing I have to say about is I thought the music was actually very good. I thought the soundtrack was very good, even though this movie is really bad. But I thought the soundtrack in the movie is actually very well done. And the other thing I also like about this movie is that like the scene like with the American Godzilla arriving to New York for the first time is actually very well shot. And every time I see this movie and years after, I really got chills of seeing like the American Godzilla arriving in New York City. And it turns out to be like one of the most like tense, like one of the most chilling moments that you have seen in a monster movie, even though this movie is like anything but generic. And the only actor I think is really good in this movie, and I think is probably the only best actor, is Jean Reno as this French guy named Philippe. I think he is like the best actor and the best character in this movie. And I recently saw him in one of my favorite movies of last year, My Penguin Friend, which if you guys have not seen My Penguin Friend, I recommend you should guys go check that out. It's because it's actually a very sweet, heartwarming movie. And Jean Reno, I think, is to be honest, I thought that he's actually a really cool guy in this movie. So he's like the only actor I like. And the last thing I like about this movie is the concept of like, even though that this Godzilla is like smaller and weaker than the original Godzilla that we all know and love, he can be like anywhere like in the city. Like if you go like, let's say if you go like into Times Square or Central Park or even like somewhere like in the school, like around the city, and then right there you see this version of Godzilla. To be fair, it actually kind of sounds like a very scary concept that you would spot an American Godzilla in the middle of the city and without people noticing it. So I have to give credit as for credit is due. And those are the only positive things about this movie because, like I said, while I don't despise this movie as a lot of people do, but this movie is not very good, obviously. So yeah, this movie, it just doesn't really work. So I'm going to explain why I don't think this movie works. Because let's start with the characters. Now, with the exception of Jean Reno's character as Philippe, the rest of the characters are not interesting. They were either bland, or they're just there, or they're just kind of unlikable. Now let's start with Nick Tatopoulos. He's played by Matthew Broderick. Now, I know that Matthew Broderick has never been like a really great actor, but like after when I really loved his voice performance as Simba from Disney's The Lion King, I haven't really seen him like in a lot of movies he's been in like in his career, but like everyone says that he's not really like a great actor in cinema history. And it was also because of like this movie as well as the live action Inspector Gadget, which I heard that film was really, really bad. But his character, Nick Tatopoulos, is just some like generic science guy who was like studying earthworms, and he doesn't really feel like an actual scientist in my opinion. And then there was this line where he says, "That's a lot of fish."
That's a lot of fish.
Which I'm sorry, but like the only reason why that line was so funny is because it's really not that funny. It just feels so forced. And I was just like, how is that funny? I mean, okay, I mean, like that's a lot of fish, but so? I mean, what's so funny about saying, oh, look, there's a lot of fish, or like, oh, look, there's a lot of crabs. Oh, there's a lot of dolphins. There's a lot of I don't know, carrots. But yeah, like that joke actually just feels forced. And like I said, the only reason why that line was funny was because it's not funny. So yeah, I don't think Matthew Broderick was that good of an actor in this movie, and I just kind of felt like, well, he's not unlikable. Like I think he's, sorry, like I think he's fine, but he's just not that good. He's really not that good. I mean, I don't think it's his fault. I think it has to be the direction of this movie and the writing. All right, the next character I want to talk about is Andre. Now, Andre is Nick Tatopoulos' girlfriend, and she is considered to be like one of the worst girlfriends that you have ever seen in a movie, because after when she and Nick broke up and they were reunited again, when she sees Nick Tatopoulos, like during like after when this Godzilla attacks like the helicopter scene, which I almost forgot to mention real quick, that the helicopter scene when the American Godzilla was being chased and they actually took down was a lot of fun. That's the one thing I wanted to realize. I wanted to mention really quick. But anyways, back to Andre. So she is like not really interesting, and the worst thing that she did in this movie is that she stole Nick Tatopoulos' tape about the history of Godzilla, because she wants to be like a reporter, because her boss is like doing the news reports about the American Godzilla going through New York City. And the way how she wants to be a reporter is like very selfish. And she is like pretty much responsible for Nick Tatopoulos to get booted off the team from the military when the military didn't want to listen to Nick Tatopoulos about the American Godzilla laying eggs, because this Godzilla is pregnant, which it's weird because this Godzilla is a male. And I'm like, what? Like, that makes no sense. But yeah, and then we get into the trope of the liar cliche, where she lies to Nick about not being a reporter, and then like it seems to be like a misunderstanding, and there's like a lie reveal cliche that you have seen in many movies and so many times. And then later on during the film's climax, they actually got back together again. And the romance is really not that interesting. I really don't really buy their romance. It's not one of the worst romances I've seen in the movie, but there's nothing too what's that word I'm looking for? Like there's nothing genuine or interesting because of this whole like misunderstanding thing, and then the way how she wants to be a reporter by stealing Nix's tape was just so selfish. So yeah, I really don't. It just doesn't make any sense. All right, the last character I wanted to talk about is Victor Animal, played by Hank Azaria. Now, if you guys are familiar with Hank Azaria's character, or his name, I would say, is that he was what I heard that he was actually from like The Simpsons, and he plays like couple of Simpsons characters, I guess. I don't really watch The Simpsons, but I heard he was part of the Simpsons cast. And he's just a very like annoying generic camera guy, which I guess that he kind of reminds me a bit like Carl Denham from King Kong, but unlike Carl Denham, this guy doesn't really he's not really like a film producer like Carl Denham from King Kong, but he just has like a camera that he sees like the American Godzilla, and then he just like really makes really weird, really cringy jokes. Like if you thought the new Marvel Cinematic Universe movies make some like really weird, awkward, cringy jokes, this guy actually made like one of the worst jokes I actually have ever heard from a movie, especially in this adaptation of Godzilla. All right, now it's time to talk about like what you guys have been waiting for me to talk about, Godzilla himself. Now, here's the thing. When you think of Godzilla, what did you guys mostly think? You would think of this picture right here, from either the Showa era, the Heisei era, or the Millennium era, or even the Monsterverse. And what does this Godzilla look like? Yeah. Now, take a look at these two pictures. Does these two versions of Godzilla look the same? No, because this Godzilla, the real Godzilla that we all know and love, is like a mutated giant creature, and it causes destruction. This Godzilla, however, is just like a generic looking T-Rex with spines on his back, and he kind of roars. And when he roars, he kind of sounds like Godzilla, which I would kind of give the movie some credit. But this Godzilla didn't really feel like, or has nothing to do, or doesn't even look like Godzilla, because this Godzilla is actually smaller and weaker than the real Godzilla, and he doesn't shoot atomic breath. He's not really the Godzilla where he causes like forces of destruction, and he just like feels like a scared creature that would just like lay eggs and something like that, which he actually did lay eggs at the Madison Square Garden, which I have no idea how he does that when he didn't even like make destruction in the Madison Square Garden. And oh my god, it's so weird. I don't know how the heck that they make this Godzilla a scared creature, and he doesn't even feel or look like Godzilla. He just looks like something like out of like a monster that you would see from a King Kong movie. And yeah, this is weird. Yeah, he doesn't shoot atomic breath, and the way how they kill him off by the end of the movie just feels like it's just kind of insulting to Godzilla, because Godzilla is tough enough to take attacks from the military. I would not say he's invincible, because he's not. And I know the Godzilla fans are going to attack me, and they're going to be like, "Oh, F you, man, Godzilla is invincible." No, he's not. I'm saying he's tough. I'm not saying that the normal weapons from the military can kill him. What I'm saying is that he's tough, but he does have his own share of weaknesses. But this Godzilla is like, he doesn't really cause any destruction in the city, and he just comes off as like a generic dinosaur that you have seen like from other dinosaur movies. Okay, and if you guys are wondering, what do I think of the scenes with the baby Godzillas in Madison Square Garden? Well, the baby Godzillas in this movie, everyone has says this, that it's a ripoff of the raptor scenes from Jurassic Park, and they're right. It really is, because when you see like these baby Godzillas hatching from the eggs, and you see like the shadow sequence with these baby Godzillas, this is something like out of like Jurassic Park. And even when I was watching this movie with my aunt and uncle, when I slept over at my aunt and uncle's house for a sleepover, and we watched this Godzilla movie, and that scene was like, yeah, this scene this is exactly like from Jurassic Park. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, it is from Jurassic Park, like with the like the velociraptors. And yeah, this is ridiculous. And then and the destruction in this movie is actually really toned down, and it's really weird because Roland Emmerich's last movie that he directed before this was Independence Day, and there was a sequence like where the aliens were blowing up the president's White House. Now, I've never seen Independence Day, but like there are some people that enjoy this movie and there are some people that hated it. Now, and it pretty much is kind of like divisive or divisive, if that's the right word. So yeah, and the destruction of this movie is really toned down because unlike the original Godzilla from the real Godzilla movies in Japan, this Godzilla doesn't really cause that much destruction. Okay, he caused like some little destruction, but not as much as the real Godzilla, because most of the destruction comes from the military. And the military in this movie, they suck. They suck at their jobs for hitting this creature, because whatever like they shoot the missiles, they would like destroy the buildings and even destroy like the Chrysler building. And yeah, it really shows that these militaries are just like are trying so desperately to try to shoot this on this monster, and I think they just like overdid it. I don't know if it's the American Godzilla himself that just I don't know, or even like the military is like, oh, we gotta shoot this thing, and then like oh, look at those buildings that we blew up, oh, we don't care, like because we're gonna focus on like trying to shoot this Godzilla even though it's not the real Godzilla. And it just comes off as really, really stupid. So yeah, and then this movie actually ends like when the like during the taxi chasing sequence, which reminds me of King Kong, where Godzilla was chasing the main characters, and then this Godzilla got stuck in the Brooklyn Bridge, and then these planes from the military actually shoots missiles, and they actually kill this Godzilla. And that's also really, really, really insulting to Godzilla's character. So, and then the movie ends like with this Godzilla is dead, and then everyone is like celebrating, be like, yay, Godzilla's dead, yay, guess we're all happy. Yeah, you can really tell that this is actually insulting. And it's not like with the original 1954 film where Godzilla is defeated by the Oxygen Destroyer, which is actually much more powerful than a human weapon that did kill Godzilla. There were some little cheering at the end of that movie, but like it's not really like how this movie did. So it was dumb. And then this movie ends like with this little egg that survived the explosion in Madison Square Garden that was going to set up for a sequel, which never happened. But it did turn out that we actually got to see Godzilla the series. And I'm not going to lie, I heard a lot of good things about it, and I felt like this is what the American Godzilla film should have been. So, yeah. So, overall, guys, I know I've been, like, really, really harsh on this movie. I don't want to be, like, too harsh, because that's not who I am. But I do not hate this movie, because there are some good stuff I can find in it. But when there's stuff that is really bad, then I mean it's really bad. But to be fair, it's, to me, in my opinion, it's not one of the worst movies I have ever seen or one of the worst remakes, because I think there's other remakes, especially the movie remakes that we're getting nowadays. I feel like are even worse than this. So I would say I would recommend this movie if you want to watch it like on a rainy day, which yeah, this movie has a lot of rain in this, which I was like, okay. And I would actually would kind of recommend this movie to people who really want to watch on a rainy day, or if you want to watch like a movie that if you're like bored, if you want to watch like a movie that it's like it's so bad it's good, then this is the film that I would kind of recommend. But as a Godzilla movie or even a giant monster movie, I would say stick with the original 1954 Godzilla, stick with Godzilla 2000, the 2014 reboot that starts the MonsterVerse, and I will also recommend Godzilla Minus One, which Godzilla Minus One is actually the best Godzilla film and one of the best giant monster films that we actually pretty much got. That is not just a Godzilla or King Kong movie from the MonsterVerse. So yeah, so I'm not angry with this movie. I just don't think it's like really worth watching, and I really cannot recommend this to Godzilla fans. So on a scale 1 to 10, I'm gonna give Godzilla 1998 a 5 out of 10. Now, the reason why I'm not going to give this movie a 2 or 3 out of 10 is because, like I said in this review, there are some stuff that I actually did enjoy from this movie, which I still think it's still fun to watch, but it can be enjoyable at times. But as a Godzilla movie or even as a giant monster movie, just skip it. And I think it's best to just watch like the other giant monster movies or even other Godzilla movies. So that's why I'm giving this film a 5 out of 10. So overall, if you see this movie sitting on the shelves, just keep walking and just go find a better Godzilla movie. I don't hate this movie. I'm not saying it's the worst film. I know a lot of people say it is the worst, but I don't hate this movie as a lot of people do, but it's still bad, and I do not recommend it at all. So folks, that is my review for the 1998 Godzilla. Hope you guys enjoy this, and if you guys have seen this movie, what you guys think of it? Did you despise this movie like a lot of people do, or do you think this movie is just just generic? You don't hate it, or it's just like, okay, it's a generic monster movie, but there are some positive things I can find, and let me know, like, what is your most and least favorite Godzilla film? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, feel free to subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and turn on the notifications when I make future videos. And stay tuned for the next video that I'm going to be reviewing the Sonic the Hedgehog Mega Man comic book crossover. If you guys have seen my community posts, just like when I review My Neighbor Totoro. And yeah, oh, one more thing before I go. Did you know that that Roger Ebert and what's his name? Gene Siskel, I hope I'm saying his last name right, are actually a parody in this movie. Yeah, the two film critics that actually are movie critics that review movies back then. Did you know they actually make fun of these two in this movie? Yeah, you guys probably didn't know, and I didn't even know either when I rewatched this movie or did the research. But yeah, anyways, but yeah, like, hope you guys enjoy my review for the 1998 Godzilla. And I'll see you guys next time. All right? Take care.